welcome to my Book of Light. Welcome, Muegge.
Thank you.
Warm welcome again. The physical medium from Hanau, Germany. Carl, you hardly need an introduction, of course, because it's a full Skype conversation. First, let me introduce you now to the members here who are sitting here. Bertina, Aleida, Henny, Antoinette.
Hello, members.
Hello, God.
Yeah, I love their energy. They were here today also, so they have the good spirits to be here again. So, of course, physical mediumship, most people who are looking at these videos know already what it's all about. But maybe you can explain a little bit more about what is physical medium for the viewer who just started to watch this video.
Physical mediumship is a form of energetical spirituality. Basically, it's something that was for long since known. From the beginning of time, from the beginning of the existence of the human being, there were several different ways and forms in which people were conversing with the spirit world. And who might not know what the spirit world is, the spirit world is one of the main factors of the metaphysical evolution of the human mind. In the most earliest society, people were conversing with spirits, with an unseen world. And with an unseen world, the human being was always subliminally feeling or sensing as existent, and not only existent, but also standing in a connection with us. And there were different forms in conversing with this unseen world. And one form of conversing with it was to have the spirit world manifested, to let it manifest in our own three-dimensional reality, so to speak. And that is a way and form that was in Western spirituality one of the main driving motors at the beginning, but because it was so hard to explain, and other forces, even within the Western spirituality, was starting to turn spirituality into survivalism. Everything was only turning around the questions and the proof of survival. Also, the forms of conversation were changing, and sooner or later, all these different conditions led to a state where physical mediumship was drawn into the background of things. And in the 60s and 70s in Scandinavia was a lot of activity. In America, it was never extinct, never. And even in England, there was always a scene that was active in this specific form of conversation with the spirit world. And in the 70s, there were a lot of activities, the Noah's Ark home circle connection. In the 80s and 90s, the Noah's Ark Society was trying to reintroduce this energetic spirituality into the Western spiritualism. And then in the 90s, the Skoll Group was bringing it forward finally, eventually. And everybody was again interested in physical mediumship. And hundreds of groups were forming everywhere around the world. And we also were installing a group, the Felix Circle, at that time. The Felix Circle was also more or less an outcome of this revival times for physical mediumship. So in regards to mental mediumship, let's say when in mental mediumship, and this is the most common form, when mental mediumship means a message from a loved one, then in physical mediumship, this will be a touch from a loved one. very easily said and indirectly comparison with mental mediumship.
Yes, that's lovely to experience, I must say. And I think a lot of people experience that already, who has seance groups also at home. Whilst what we experience in your seances is much going beyond that. It is amazing.
As soon as you open your concepts, the encounters in the seance room do open as well and do change as well.
Witnessing something extraordinary, then the mind will immediately, instinctively act to dismiss it. And even with normal things that happens. Last week we had a funeral, and in a wink I thought I saw a friend of ours among the presents, and I did not expect him at all. So my mind dismissed it immediately. And later on, actually, he was there, this friend of ours. And you see how my mind and our minds can work. So if we do not expect it, believe it, and we still see something extraordinary, we will say, "Oh no, it's not. It was not there. I haven't seen it. It was I must be my imagination," and we overrule that. And then when it happens again and again and again, then we start maybe to believing it, anyway, to give questions to what we have seen.
Yes, indeed. These reactions within specifically early experimental groups, when they start to experiment and encounter the first unusual things in the seance room, there is a natural, our mind is trained to react in a rational manner. Yeah. And specifically unrational things we tend to reject or to dismiss. And that's why an outspoken technique for the seance room is to lower your skepticism, to lower your rationality, and even to accept things. And if it is only experimentally, but lower your rationalism, lower your skepticism to let things happen. And the more they will happen, your skepticism will go away anyway.
Yes.
But it will help. It will help to get the things going.
Absolutely. And there is no question mark in my mind that what the spirit is capable of doing, because they are capable of so many things, and I had so many evidence for that. So,
oh yes, and not only our own evidence. I mean, for 2,000 years, the church is documenting, because before parapsychology, it was the church that nearly 2,000 years has documented the anomalies around the human being. Why did the church do that? Because the church was looking for evidence for a creation, for God power, God force, for the existence of God himself. So that's why the church was so very much into it. And what we find in their annals is absolutely amazing and unquestionable, because they were so detailed and so careful and so outweighing. Yes. So this is profound, and parapsychology also has found out a lot of things which can be regarded as facts today. Meanwhile, maybe in the 50s, yes, we still would have rejected it.
Yes, and most people still are.
Oh, yeah.
And even, I think when it is the news of the day, then a lot of people will reject it. Anyway, because it has a lot of consequences if you accept it. Because what will happen if all the illusions will fall down? And of course, there will come something else in place, but still, to understand that, in my belief, is a sea of consciousness where we're tapping in, if you like to speak so. Mm-hmm. when I have contact with the spirit world, it feels for me like an sea or an ocean. How can you?
Absolutely, indeed.
Of consciousness.
Yes, indeed. And I always remark that I believe that in this ocean of consciousness, because it is an ocean of consciousness, we find there everything we can imagine, everything we cannot imagine, everything that has somehow, somewhen came in contact with our thinking can be existent there.
Absolutely.
So that's
yes, I'm sorry.
So that's why it is so necessary that we expand our ways in dealing with this spirit world. We accept the necessity and the worthiness of working with people in deep grief and in mourning states that keep them in a dark valley where they cannot get out, and using mediumship and the spirit world to teach them that consciousness is something that is eternal, that may help them to find their way back into a more brighter form of life. But besides that, I mean, we just have given seances in New Zealand, and there was a Maori tribesman. He was part of the spiritualistic church, and he loved it. But he asked me just the second day, Kai, can you tell me, I love the church and everything, but what we do not understand is that every Sunday we again and again have to go through that question and answer thing in regards to getting in contact with the deceased. Is that really necessary? Don't we have understood that consciousness is surviving? Do we have to prove it every Sunday and Sunday again? He additionally said, in our world, this could not be possible because either you believe in something and you build a church around it, and then the belief in life after death is the main belief of the church, but then it is forbidden every Sunday to put that in question, actually, because you are proving and proving. You do not need to prove something that is believed. You know why that is? Because we Western people have lost to believe. We do not know what believing is anymore. We are in that proof circle, and for the first time in 20,000 years of working with the spirit world, the spirits shall prove something. Spirits are etherical. Spirits are elusive. Mm-hmm. They do not really match to prove things, but we have brought them into this proof thing. Proof that the medium is not standing up, proof that the information is valid, proof that there is a life after death. That does not work properly. And the many problems we have within spirituality also comes from this difficulty, wanting to prove something that is in the end unprovable because it happens in an area beyond the human being, and prove something that exists in our three-dimensional concreteness.
Yes, but Kai, may I?
Of course.
If, by example, in seances, a simple phenomenon like table tilting, yes, table dancing, it can be done even in your seances, also with light on, and people can see that it's truly genuine, that it happens. So there must be an energy that is part of us, but is not connected with our ego. We're not consciousness of it, but it's there. It's a part of our consciousness. Who can make it happen? And also, of course, our friends in the spiritual can make it happen. But this is something that people can see with their own eyes. And only if you experience this truly, then people can understand that there must be some X factor, something else. So this is some easy thing that, of course, spirit can prove for those who want to.
We need to ask ourselves, proof for who?
Yeah, only for the ones who want to know.
Yes. For a general society, that's not a proof.
No, because they need to have need to have questions, and most people, of course, not all people, but most people start having questions if there is a big loss, for example, that they come to you for, like you say, for comfort, to understand that there's truly something out there that life is continuing, isn't it? But there is more to it, because if there is more evidence in the way that the consciousness exists on also out of the body, that we are not, the body is not what we in essence are, then it has a lot of consequences for our life and how we connect with life, nature, and so on, animals, other human beings, if there is understanding. And I believe it is growing, don't you think so? Because only if we talk about kinds of healing that people do understand now or open for it, there is something going on, isn't it?
Definitely, but it is going on too slow. Or let's say,
for me too.
Until now, it was going too slow.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a chance at the moment, and this chance we never had before.
No.
It is exactly the chance in which we are at the moment engaged in. It is the chance that this new era of social networks, modern technology, actually, that what was regarded for a long time as a plague, so to speak, now can become a chance.
Absolutely.
This connecting thing, sharing information quickly and extensively. You know, we have used that from the beginning. You know our blog, and you know how very much we use images to get information out. People do not want to see blocks of letters. You need to attract them.
Yes.
And these new forms of sharing information, social networks, enables us to do that.
That's
so we can share information in a way we could never before. No other society before ours could do that way.
That's very good to mention this, because it's so true. And also the fact that it's all, and it sounds maybe, we heard that before, but it's the power that is carrying all the phenomena, in my belief, is the power of love. And I believe that is the biggest power that there is. And the
Absolutely.
opposite, if I say the opposite very quickly, is fear. So all the people who spread fear, they are so many of them, also churches, as you say, because they bring a lot of fear in dogmas, and it can really frighten people even when they're dying, because I work as a nurse a lot with dying people, and the fear around this is something is planted, a seed, that there is a hell, or you can burn in hell, or that's kind of awful talks. And I remember one woman on occasion said to me, "But Lonneke, I know what you say is true, but still, maybe it is true what they have said to me. What then?"
You are very, very right. And this is really a problem we have in a lot of spiritual areas, where absolutely unnecessary fears and anxiety was set by modern society, by Hollywood, of course, as well. Look at the Ouija board, which was a piece of wood like the table is when we communicate. But because of Hollywood and because of the fact that the Ouija board was sold as a toy for children,
yes,
between 4 and 6 years old.
Yes.
I mean, this is criminal. This is, how could they do it? I mean, how silly is that? And not only this, in the instructions, they tell in a children's language, they tell the children how to exactly use it. And imagine there were brother and sister, maybe between 10 and 12 years old. They had traumatic experiences.
Absolutely. And young people who want to experience have traumatic experiences. And why is that? Is because their emotions and all kind of problems that you have to face in certain ages. And even when you have some fear, the emotions are already upset. And so you can expect all this kind of...
exactly. So who did fail here? Parental control did fail here?
Understanding. There was no understanding.
You need to be educated.
Absolutely.
You need to know what you are doing when you are. So, and we don't have that here. No. 4 and 6 year old children, even 10 or 12-year-old children, they have no knowledge of the spirit world and about techniques.
No.
But the toy industry did push them into it.
Yes.
And that's bad.
Dear Kai, shall we talk about the mediums of the past? Would you like that?
Oh yeah, I mean this is a huge area to talk about, but also a very interesting area to talk about as well.
Absolutely. And I was thinking about Zonneglossis.
Oh yes.
Would you mind that we speak about him and then maybe a few others as well?
Oh, there are a lot of, but Zonneglossis is a very special one because of the powerful features he was unleashing, so to speak. His background is interesting.
Absolutely.
And of course the researchers that were involved in him. I mean, unfortunately, the most material about him is in Polish. And
it comes from Warsaw, what? Warsaw.
Warsaw, exactly. And unfortunately, it is with Indridason, the Icelandic, amazing physical medium. Only those who have access to the Polish language actually can retrieve the most interesting material here. I mean, there were things written by Gustav Gele, about Zonneglossis, and from time to time in German periodicals you found articles about him. Schrenk did write about him, Schrenk-Notzing.
Yes.
So what makes the Zonneglossis mediumship so interesting? First of all, he was a successor of Jan Guzik. Jan Guzik already was a famous and powerful Polish medium. Mm-hmm. And actually, Franek had visited one of Jan Guzik's sessions, and that more or less started it all. The Zonneglossis mediumship is so amazing because we have these proven animal material.
Yes, I read about it. I was amazed. It's worthwhile for our viewers to look into these mediums of the past, like Zonneglossis. Yes, he animals in the seance room, didn't he?
Yes, I mean, I have experienced that in physical mediumship seances of the Northern American Indian tribes.
Yes.
They call it ceremony. Specific ceremonies like the Yuvipi ceremony, but they don't call it seance, of course. They are joking, indeed. Will you have seance tonight? I know that really is the case. So they are knowing that there is a comparison with Western seances, but in ceremonies, mainly for healing, animals do materialize in these ceremonies as well, and huge animals, I can tell you.
Yes, I heard about it. But also, most of the time it is the sound of the animal, isn't it?
Oh, but by far not only the sound.
No?
I had, for example, a huge eagle-like bird sitting on my shoulder. I was wrapped up in a blanket lying on the floor besides the medicine man, and a massive, stinking bear
My
was
goodness.
coming up. And with his snout, this bear tried to enter into the wrappings around me, and he stank massively, and he made so deep guttural sounds, and he literally threw me around with his paws. I can tell you. And I was present at another healing ceremony.
But how long ago was this? Was Julia, your wife, also there?
Oh yes, and several other friends. She had experience. She had her own experiences, I can tell you, with the spirits of the Northern American Indian tribes. They did things absolutely amazing. So she was transported. She was flying, transported by the spirits to the opposite side of the huge hall. It was more or less a small hall in which this ceremony was with around 40 people. And she had her own experiences as well. But materialization is very frequently happening. Materialization of animals and the materialization of the elders, and not only the spirits of the elders, but also the powerful nature spirits with which they work. Interestingly, they work specifically in this environment with spirits of spiders, what is a little bit irritating for the Western observer. But I have a lot of stories about these spiders being seen in many of them.
Materialized spiders?
Oh, yes.
But this is frightening people, isn't it?
Yeah.
I would scream, I think.
We Westerners. Yeah, I mean, the Northern American spirit ceremony is made for the Northern American Indian, and the Northern American Indian has no problems.
No, it's our mindset.
It's our mindset, yeah. So,
but Kai, you talked about this huge bear that you heard howling like that and putting his face here. Did Julia was present,
yes.
For example, she heard the same sounds?
Oh, everybody in the
This I want to make clear for our viewers that it's not only heard or your experience, but all of the one who were present experienced the same thing. Really?
Indeed. That makes these ceremonies to be so close to physical mediumship, because it's unquestionably physical. The materializations can be seen even sometimes because they have light phenomena as well. Spirit lights, we would call them spirit lights.
Yes, of course.
And in these spirit lights, these materializations can be seen, and that is amazing as well. I've seen, for example, a very old lady. You need to know, you are sitting around an altar.
Yes.
And suddenly it flashed. Only a short story, then we come back to Kuski, but
yes.
There's an interesting comparison because of the animal.
Of course there is.
So we sat around the altar, and suddenly it flashed, and I saw directly in front of me a blue surface of something. What is that? It looked like a piece of cloth or something. And then it flashed a second time, and I saw that it was the skirt of a very old woman, a tiny Indian woman with gray hair was standing in front of me. She was focused onto me, and she immediately started to speak loudly to me in Lakota. I somehow tried to connect with the speech, but I could not really understand what she was talking. But the materialization was seen by me, heard by everybody, and most of the people had a form of experience with a visual encounter with something. I mean, the birds that fly through the room, they permanently fly in front of you or behind you. Sometimes they land on you. That was my experience, and the experience of others. And
it's amazing. And of picking Julia, by example, up and putting her on another place in the room.
Yes.
Of course, I know from wonderful seances that I also joined with Scott Milligan, how he was put with his chair to another point in the room. It was amazing, of course. But it must be, you never expected. I think she wouldn't expect that she was...
not at all. No, she was not expecting. She needed time to process that strange feeling she had, because she suddenly felt as if she was like, you need to know, she was standing at the time, and suddenly she had the feeling as if the space beneath her, below her, would come into motion, and suddenly she stood in front of a wall. And yes, and she needed time to understand, I am on the complete opposite side of the room, and I need to turn around to look again into the middle of the room. So that was that transportation thing that happened in 2 seconds or so.
It's unbelievable, and of course, you're familiar with materialization, with apports, and all the material things around us are not as solid as we think, but they are, of course, not solid at all. There are so much space between them and everything, like our own bodies.
So true.
Yes. So with this, the spirit worlds can interact, of course.
Yes, they can. And with Franek Kluski, we have these amazing reports about his animal materialization. And we have the photos, of course. And, it's always when photos come into place, that what is so concrete starts already to disintegrate. We have very well photographed big birds out of the seance.
Really?
But immediately afterwards, when we try to catch it into our world, like on photos, it starts to become sometimes difficult. There was an entity, it was called the Picanthropus.
Yes.
The Picanthropus is an early human being, actually, but still having hair. It just has left the string of the apes and is a very early, even ape-like being. And the Picanthropus entity was so well known because he was obvious. They never saw it, but they always felt it, because the being was very attractive to the female sitters. It loved to lick their faces and hands. And when this entity came so close, the poor ladies could feel that it was a human being having hairs, fur on the body. It smelled strongly like a wet dog.
Goodness.
Yes, and it made very excited noises when he was.
Yes. So, this can be frightening, I'm sure. Even it will frighten me. But it's marvelous, of course. It's everything what is fear is what is frightening. And the moment that you have more understanding, that is with me, that if I have more understanding, then the fear goes away like that. Then I laugh myself. But meeting a human being or an ape, something in between like that will be quite a shock, I believe. And even, it's something which. But also, Kluski had a kind of ape in his seances, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, I was talking about Kluski.
Oh, you was talking about Kluski.
That was in Kluski's seance.
Yes. Now, so it was your experience. So, okay, it was Kluski. Yes.
Yes.
I know that he did, and but he never performed seances on public. Only I think, in his house with his own seance group. Am I right?
No, not really. Semi-public, let's say. So it was never advertised, but interested people came over networks from all over Poland and even from France and from Germany. So he had a lot of people sitting with him, but it was never advertised, like in, like a public event. No, not that.
Okay. And what I read about him, that he did let doctors research him, or in laboratory, some research of his work as a physical medium, and they say they never searched truly his body, but there were doctors researching him, what I read, before and afterwards. But it's amazing how always there are skepticism, also on the scientists, of course. And I do think it's healthy to have some skeptic mind, to get people to research also. But on forehand, no. So they are trying to, what they can't believe with their own mind, they want to give themselves a kind of peace to try to reject it, to say it's not true what I see, it's not true and try to find something.
Indeed.
And why is that always the case? Not always, because with Edgar Cayce, also some great medium of the past, of course, I think there were very seldom something like that. He talked very good about him, most researchers.
Yeah, I mean, Edgar Cayce, he was not offering such a huge plane to attack him. Physical mediums can be much more easily be attacked and questioned, of course, because Edgar Cayce was providing the information he was getting in regards to the criminal cases he was part of and so forth. And there were a lot of times he was able to help in regards to criminal investigations. So that gave him a very good name, but you can be sure he had his critics, and he had massive, mediumship in general is not accepted by, it is a war of beliefs, yes? And there is really a form of a very arch skeptical community. It is about how science is declaring is explaining the world or declaring the world to be. And inside of this scientific communities, there is a fight of war. Who is right and who is wrong? And out of this society, actually, the big skepticism is coming from, because they are not true scientists, because the true scientists should change when facts are leading into another direction. But they have their facts in concrete,
in concept already.
Yes, they have concepts they do not want to change.
No.
And they make a war of belief.
Do you think, Kai, because we're talking about this and mentioning, what kind of scientists are needed, do you think? For example, if there are, because you had let scientists do some research, I believe, also.
Oh yes, for years.
For years. And what kind of scientists, what was their background, if I may ask?
Yeah. First of all, you need to know that when you are asking what kind of scientists are needed, unfortunately, science itself has rules in regards when we look for provability, and science steps forward to prove things, to have it accepted by the general society in the end. That the general society is overtaking views about the understanding of the world. And science itself has invented laws and rules for their modi operandi, so how they proceed in their investigations.
I understand that.
And it does not fit with what is needed when we are doing our mediumistic work as well. For example, we need a sympathetic environment of people that are supporting us and giving positive energy into the world.
Absolutely.
For science, that does not mean nothing. They will ask you, what is positive energy? You don't know what you are talking about. Are you talking about temperature? Your body is... Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's
so
too much beta. Can you say that?
Again?
It's too much beta. It's too much calculations. With the mind thinking. It's
yes.
Too much...
Yes, they want it to make it clear. They want to have it under all conditions be repeated in the laboratory.
Yes, of course, and I believe that is not such a bad something to want to achieve, to repeat something. But I think every medium knows that you can't do your reading or do your whatever you do, your phenomenon, just like that by asking and pulling the button. Sometimes it works.
But now you are not anymore ready to be investigated by science. If you cannot prove your thing by pushing a button, no. Science won't be interested in you.
But what kind of scientist do we need, Kai? It's a scientist who wants to experience it more than once, at least 10 times, and then to see that from the 10 times, by example, 6 times it will occur. But it needs to have, the scientist needs to have a warm feeling towards what's going on as a human being.
Yes, and maybe you will change the one scientist or the other, and you will persuade scientists about the continuity of what is going on. But you will not bring science itself, so the scientific establishment won't bring to accept what is going on, because the one or the two or the three scientists you may have been able to persuade during your career that what you are doing is genuine, these three scientists won't suffice to persuade the others, to change the rules of engagement.
Everybody has his own time, and patience is the biggest word we need to have, because if I have to believe what I get from my connection with my spirit team, is that they say in time, also science will prove and will understand that consciousness is a kind of other energy than we know, and that it exists. Do you believe that too?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The thing is simply that science haven't found the right approach, and there will be the time when science. I mean, we already are. Things are changing. Things are changing already.
Yeah.
Since the beginning of parapsychology, within science, openness starts to become more and more, and that they use and try out new ways of approach, and the scientific protocol. It's the scientific protocol that has to be changed.
Yes.
By now, unfortunately, to say that no medium actually has gained reputation by working with scientists. And why? Why? Because always in the end, questions were unanswered. And in the worst case, these unanswered parts will be filled with allegations. Cold reading.
Oh yeah.
He went out of his bindings the moment it was dark, and so forth.
Yes. But even with Edgar Cayce, on one occasion, researchers put needles just through his hand, to see when he was in a deep trance. He was not aware of the pain. I think you will know that they did it.
Oh yes.
And at that moment, he understood, as I read, that he noticed that they didn't care about him at all, only about their proof, even when they're hurting him. But I believe that mediums like you and mediums generally speaking who are genuine need to be protected, need to take care of, because it is something that you give and share that must take care of your health, your everything. But they did not do that at all with Edgar Cayce.
Indeed, you are absolutely right. And only in very, very rare cases, scientists were shielding their mediums and securing and defending their mediums in the moment when questions came up. Mostly they let you fall like a hot potato.
Yeah, this is unbelievable, is it?
Yes, it is. And it has to do with the anxiety, the fear to lose reputation themselves. Okay. Even within parapsychology, and that is really a shame, but even within parapsychology,
yes,
the scientists are afraid that the other might question their own reputation. Because you are maybe interested in physical mediumship, and you know that your parapsychological colleague is not he might believe in let's say poltergeists, but he's not believing in physical mediumship, and he might consider you as gullible, and he will talk around and he will say, "Oh, my colleague so and so, he is a gullible lad. He is believing in physical mediumship."
Yeah.
Can I pose a question?
Oh yes, please.
Hello, Martin. Welcome.
Hello, Martin. I saw your remarks. I
haven't seen them.
No,
please, Martin.
Which actually I want to point out that listening to your conversation last 5 minutes, I conclude that you both fall in the same historical trap. The trap is the following. In the Middle Ages, everybody looked up to the church as the carrier of wisdom, as the carrier of knowledge. Now you're actually exposing the same towards scientists. Scientists, carriers of wisdom, carriers of knowledge. Neither is true, and neither will provide the answer actually for what you're looking for. Think that over.
Okay, all right. Yeah, that's right what you are saying. But that describes the optimal scientist who is led by fact itself. Most of the scientists, at least scientists who are involved in that war of belief, they are not necessarily following the fact, they are following their belief.
No, I'm not talking about a scientist. I'm talking about the two of you. The two of you are framed that you expect that a scientist may actually help you, let's say, convey or approve actually your knowledge.
Why
so
not?
You fall in the same trap.
Why?
As in the past, actually, people believe that the church is the carrier of that one. So I would even actually, as a scientist, I would say, don't expect the answers or the support for science.
Yes,
so
okay.
Science is not capable of providing that. So don't put your belief in the scientist. Don't look for the scientist to do that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, but Martin, now you're with us. Can I ask you a question? Isn't it? It goes more about people who want to research, like example, physical mediumship, have questions and they think out of their own box, don't they?
Yeah, but that's not particular for scientists.
So there are scientists, like they try to research on Frank Tlusky or Edgar Cayce and so on. There are truly scientists who research this because of their own curious mind, maybe, and because they are looking for answers, maybe, or they truly expect something to find something that they haven't discovered yet, like, by example, and maybe Kai, you can help me try to explain it, but of course, to talk about the things which we don't see is not so easy to be understandable. But we have the lights, like we have our own lights here in the room, and this is a kind of energy. Spirit can interfere with it, they can play with it, but they're not the same light as the energy of the lamps. So there is something else. There is a light, what we can call light, who can interfere with energy, but it's not the same as this electrical energy. So we need to, first of all, maybe they will bump into some scientists that there is something else.
May well be possible, but again, you stresses my point that you look actually in answering the vocabulary and the theory of current scientists. And that will be hard to find. Secondary, true scientists and true experimental scientists will be very, very reluctant to actually frame actually an observation into a theorem or a law. So by pure ethics, actually that is not required. And it's actually, you should not expect it. So even if the scientist may believe that he knows it for 90% sure, he cannot, and a good scientist would not actually say yes or no with that uncertainty.
Yeah,
or he will come back actually that with a statistical or a probabilistic statement. Yes, for 90% I'm sure, for 10% I'm not sure, and that's it. And so that's one thing. So the true scientist should not follow actually the whim of the day. And the second, of course, scientist is like a business, so you follow the rules of the business. And if you're a young scientist, actually you should be careful not to spoil your own career. Otherwise you won't have a nice family. So for you, and that was the starting point of my discussion here, don't put science on a pedestal. Keep actually its limitations in mind. Keep the limitations of the scientists in mind. The true scientists
thank you very much. valuable.
Yes.
setting.
Martin, please stay with us 1 minute more, because I would like to ask Kai, what do you think about that we have given so much value that scientists would give their approval that it is happening, existing? Why do we need that? Why do you think we need that?
That's a good question, but actually society to a specific degree has put science on that pedestal Martin is talking about. Like it put doctors there, for example, who are scientists as well. Probably because that was a misunderstanding actually about the role of the scientist and the ability of scientists and what might science be able in this regards to do for you, even though parapsychology was specifically founded to discern between illusion and reality within the experiences people had within spiritualism. So, specifically in regards to the phenomena of spiritualism, science was believed to lead us the way towards truth, towards genuity. But Martin is right. Science, with all its restrictions, actually does not suffice. And that won't work out, specifically when you put in your personal expectations and wishes into it. That will crash. It will be driven at a wall. Yes.
So maybe
you might, in fact, actually be more helped as a community by good forensic researchers, which have the technique, the capabilities to report, clearly describe actually what is happening. And the second time, in order to reach out a marketing bureau with good journalists to translate the message in the proper phrasing, at the proper time, the proper wording. And then, of course, not subduing actually the movie with some fearing music, but like an objective documentary. Like we now see documentary, you go to China through the eyes of a journalist.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you. Journalists, by example, I have invited one journalist by wonderful reading a friend of ours, Roger Coleman, gave. And she said, stay only 5 minutes. And she stayed the whole demonstration. And she put a very nice piece about it in the newspaper, what she did not expect on forehand. So this really, it worked out. But there was some curiosity of her at the moment that she was present. If it wasn't there, if there isn't, I think what is most important with researching or with witnessing and to write about it is the person itself who is capable of doing that. And if that person has some initials in front of his name, Dr. So-and-so or Professor so-and-so, then people will have a head turner, Oh, let's read it. What does he have to say? If my neighbor is writing this, okay, that man.
Yeah.
So maybe it's also that where we're looking for.
Definitely. That plays a role as well. How we are trained in society, as I said, yes. Where do we put them? How do we regard them? We have in Germany a saying that says, for physicians, for doctors, gods in white.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, we specifically with Germans, also towards all figures of official representation, we immediately stand strong, we say. A policeman, for example.
Yes.
Germans immediately stand strong and will, yes, sir.
Oh, in Netherlands we have to learn more about that. But okay.
Oh yeah, no, that's good in the Netherlands. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. So we know what we need. I think we have an answer to the first question. What I asked you is, what kind of researcher do we need? We need, if I may say so, and interrupt me please if I'm wrong, we need someone who is open-minded, who is not afraid for his reputation, if I think about what Martin shared with us, who is willing to discover on a positive manner, to understand also the way of spirit, how they work, and how we work. So there's a lot we ask from that person.
Yes, and a very, very important thing as well. Who else do we need besides the scientists?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And tell me, give your answer on that question. Who else do we need?
Oh, yeah, basically, as Martin was saying, we need marketing specialists.
Also.
Yes, to bring it to the people, to find a proper way of presentation and how people are perceiving it today, and how people are, and how do we serve it to fit the demands of acceptance.
And this is one of the most difficult things, not only to find that answer. First of all, it's very difficult to find such a researcher who has these initials for his name and wants to put his name on stake, or how do you say that? Who wants to? So someone who is very solid and strong. But for the other part, what you mentioned, most of the time there is money involved. And as far as I know, of course, you need to live, and we need to live, and we have to ask some money from people if it's worthwhile for them to give something to share, to have a life. But still, it must, in my belief, be not exorbitant, because when there's so much money involved, then I don't believe so much that it is in a way of interacting with spirit. I don't know how to explain it so much.
You will get a bad name. When you are asking for sums of money which are not justified, you will receive with the time a bad name. It always, when we go to the different countries, we look at every country and compare it with what the local people are paying or what they are being paid.
Yes.
Not to exceed the expectations of the people.
And everybody can have their own opinion of it. And you have a lot of mediums who are asking great amounts of money. And first of all, what I don't want is to judge. But I can, and that's a question I would like to share with you. Maybe it's one of the last ones. Maybe you have something else you want to share, of course. But if people come to join one of your beautiful seances, and I hope I will join more of your beautiful seances in the future. But we are human, and you're human, and there can be a moment that you don't feel so much as capable to give a certain seances that you had in mind. Maybe it will be a little bit different. What would you do if, would you mind very much if it is not the evening? Would you ask people to come back another evening? Did you ever experience something like that?
I can never foresee that. You know what? When I feel totally drawn out and totally weak, these were our strongest seances in the end.
Oh, really? You're joking.
And we have an explanation for it.
Oh, tell me.
Says, when you are weak, we have you out of the way immediately. And when I feel strong and I believe everything is rightly set and I feel good and everything will work out finely. I later learned from Julia, this did not work, that did not work, that did not work. So we have seances where more than 60% or even more did not work. And the people had to sit and wait if the spirits achieve what they are usually is achieved very easily. But we are dependent on condition we cannot foretell.
No.
So that's why it's very difficult for us to sense that, to foretell what might be in a seance or not. But one thing is clear, there are huge differences in the energetical output.
Yes.
And here we so totally blank seances we usually have not. And if there is at least a knocking in the wall.
Yes, of course. But you know why I'm asking this is because people pay in advance for a seance, of course, and that can give, I believe, I can understand if that gives some pressure on the medium, because then they are expecting also something in return. And of course, you hope that they have a kind of warm feeling towards an understanding for what is going on. But yeah, so this thing is something we cannot do anything about, but this is the money thing that comes between.
Yes, as we know, money is the root of all evil, basically.
Yes, I believe so.
But you know, when we are offering evenings of 5 to 6 hours of information and energetical output, I mean, even for the Indians, it is natural to give an outweigh.
Yes, it's normally, of course.
And in our civilization, the basic value is money.
Yes.
And as long as you are not exceeding that, senseless, without justification,
yes,
I believe we are safe so far. Yeah. But of course, they can use the money question to criticize us further. Yes. No question.
Yes. Absolutely. And if I think about Sir William Crookes, who wonderful researcher he was, and afterwards that he came to the conclusion that he believed that mediums could produce genuine paranormal phenomena and communicate with the spirits, then that's a warm feeling. And this is wonderful. And I think this man who lived long ago, I think he died in 1919, but he made a big mark on understanding and of that there are very good researchers too.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we have stopped much too early to talk about Zonneglossis. So next time we need to.
And then we hope Robin will be there. Robin Voy.
And if not, we talk about Indridi and Eusapia and all these exciting names.
Yes.
So there's a lot to talk.
There's a lot to talk about. Yes, it is absolutely so, because we only got a tip of the how do you call it? Tip of the sluier, we say in Dutch.
Tip of the iceberg.
Tip of the iceberg. That's the best thing to say. Enormous thank you so much, Kai, for this wonderful conversation. And it was full of energy.
Oh, yeah.
It was lovely spoken to you and wonderful what you shared with us. And I think we all think so.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kai. Is there something else you want to enter conversation with? You want to give you the last word?
Yeah, have a most beautiful evening and a safe trip home, my friends. And looking forward to see you next time. Whoever might be with us, I hope Matthijs will be with us, because I very much appreciate.
Yes, we missed him, didn't we?
And
sorry, can I ask you one more question? Have you seen this ITC video that I sent to you, if you had the time?
not yet.
Not yet. I put it on the YouTube right now, the first video.
Julia has already downloaded it. Oh, it's on YouTube now?
So now on YouTube, from this moment, everybody can see the first of it are more than 20 volunteers that participate in this test.
Okay, I will directly go there.
Yeah, please look to it and we talk. Let me hear what you think about it.
I will.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye, everybody.
See you too.
See you soon. Bye-bye.